Hello, this is Lias from pkiaas.io, and today I'd like to demonstrate the HSM capabilities offered by the site. This functionality allows you to keep your private keys secure and keep you in control of those private keys. We currently support two different types of hardware security module, including the YubiKey 5 and Soft HSM. Soft HSM isn't exactly a hardware security module, but it's a great way to get started testing this new functionality. To get everything set up, you'll need to deploy an Ubuntu 20.04 server and configure it to connect your HSM to your certificate authority on pkiaas.io. I've got a live Ubuntu server booted up here, and we can jump right into it. First, I will just get into a shell, and I'll set a password for the default user. Check the IP address for this, and I'm going to start an SSH session into that system. And then I'm going to navigate to the README for IoT-HSM, and I'll leave a link for that down in the description. And I'm just going to run these simple setup instructions. Whoops, as you can see, it's important to run these commands as root. All right, this last command is going to download a shell script and run a series of commands to install IoT-HSM on your Ubuntu server. All right, and when that's finished, you'll be prompted to create an admin password for the web interface. And after everything is set up, we'll go to https:// and the IP address of the system. These certificates can be replaced with some instructions in the README, but we'll ignore this for now. All right, and when we first get in, we really don't see anything there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the YubiKey that's plugged into this computer, and I'm going to start out just by resetting the PIV so that we know we're starting fresh. And I'm going to forward this YubiKey to our Ubuntu server. And if I reload this page, it should recognize the YubiKey and look at the slots on the device. And so we can see here the only slot that is available is slot 19, which is the attestation slot. And we want to avoid using that one when we create this certificate. But now that everything is set up and ready here, let's go ahead and log into pkiaas.io. And we're going to make a new certificate authority. Most important thing to select here when you want to provision a new HSM is under key type, we want to select HSM. And we can see here that it requires a YubiKey and additional configuration. This is also, as I said earlier, possible to do with Soft HSM, which is something that you can do by clicking Create Soft HSM to here, and then do ultimately the same thing that you would do with your YubiKey. Let's go ahead and create new CA. And because we chose the option to use HSM, we're presented with an HSM Provisioning Certificate. So we're going to leave this here for just a minute and go back into our HSM web interface. And we want to hit this drop down and say provision a new slot. And we'll just go ahead and choose slot 01 for now, and we're going to allow the YubiKey to generate its own private key. All right, now that that's finished, we're being prompted to enter the provisioning certificate. And what this does is it takes the provisioning certificate from pkiaas.io, where you've created a certificate authority, and it provides all the parameters that the IoT-HSM needs to associate that certificate with your YubiKey. And so just to demonstrate, if you happen to leave this page, you can go back into the slot that you'd begun to configure and click on it and say complete provisioning, and we're back at the same screen. But now we're going to pick up where we left off, creating our CA on pkiaas.io, and we'll copy that provisioning certificate to the clipboard, and we'll paste it in here. All right, and so now we can see that the CA that we created has been provisioned inside of the YubiKey. So if we go back to pkiaas.io and we manage our CAs, we can see YouTube HSM demo. It is an HSM. We can see that's true here. And we can see signed is false. And so we still need to import the certificate that we created on the IoT HSM into the site. So let's go to import signed certificate. And we're going to grab that certificate from IoT-HSM. And we'll paste it in here. And when we say import, we will get a pop-up. Your certificate was successfully imported. Restart your IoT-HSM device so that it can find your new certificate authority. Afterward, click Import Certificate again. So let's say OK there. When we look here, if we refresh this page, we see connected slots is 0. Well, earlier when we had this certificate here, we hadn't imported it into pkiaas.io yet, so we weren't able to connect to that certificate authority. Now that it's been imported, we can say reload here. And we're still waiting on that to connect. If we refresh this page again, we can see it's finally connected. And if we select that slot, we can see status is connected. So let's go back here and say import again like the instructions told us. All right, and so now this is our new CA and it is signed and it is configured with an HSM. And so next to test, we'll just go into, well, first let's select that CA. Then we'll go to manage templates and issue a certificate using this CA. All right, when we submit this and the request goes off to pkiaas.io, the service will then reach out to your IoT HSM and have the YubiKey sign it and send it back to the site. All right, and we can see the process was successful and the browser is allowing us to download our certificate. Let's navigate back to the site and we can see the new certificate that was issued. But let's next test and see what happens if we unplug our YubiKey from the IoT HSM. So you can see here when I disconnect it, it's going to get reconnected to the workstation I'm using so that it's no longer plugged into the Ubuntu server. And we'll go generate another certificate. This time we're going to submit a CSR. All right, so here our pending request is called test with YubiKey unplugged. And if we click and try to sign that, let's see what happens. All right, timeout exceeded, no response from IoT HSM. So let's go ahead and plug that back in. Try that one more time. And if I look down, I can actually see the YubiKey flashing now to sign that certificate request. And there's the issued certificate. That concludes the demonstration. I hope you can see the value in this new functionality. Try it out and let me know what you think in the comments.